Hello there, welcome to another edition of Editorials. We are broadcasting from Canada. My name is Sandra Asante. Today we'll be drawing consent on the completion of the second jet's filling necessitate a shift in the trilateral negotiation. So I'll be back after the break. Stay with me. Thank you so much for staying with me. So the completion of the second year filling of the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam called the JERD instigates polarized view between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt. Mainly, Egypt sees it as a proof of Ethiopia's unilateralism and thus is a deal breaker in the trilateral talks for Ethiopia. This process is technically inescapable, legally accurate, and proof of veracity that calls for total change on the current regime on the Nile. Both countries have to struggle to cope with the new reality facing the negotiations on the JERD. As much as Egypt and Sudan sees this process as a violation of international law and thus appear to lose interest in a negotiated settlement, they would also see that the possibility of securing the type of agreement that could even remotely recognize exciting water use, aka historical rights, may have been lost. Ethiopia, on the other hand, may also have increasingly little or no incentives left to ink a binding agreement on a project that nears completion. The trilateral negotiation had gone through several hiccups since it started a little less than a decade ago. It started a little, with some critical ones have continued to linger, jeopardizing the completion of the process. To surmount these concerns, several proposals and adjustments are made. The numerous efforts did not, however, result in a negotiated settlement to the dispute. Now let's look at what is presently tabled by the African Union as a phased approach, while likely fail as it will run into the same set of issues that have always been threatening the talks to crumble. In what appears to be oblivion to the magnitude of the change on the ground, Egypt and Sudan have continued insisting on the change in format that includes an enhanced role for observers, UN Security Council resolution that urges a 6-month time frame, and the interruption of the now complete second year failing of the dam. Several threats have also been made to pressure the Ethiopian government into signing a deal that it openly says doesn't protect Ethiopia's interest. None seem to have worked. It is not very hard to predict that a repeat of already tried remedies will not result in a negotiated agreement that takes into consideration the interest of the three parties. With the second year filling of the dam complete, the trilateral negotiation is facing an unprecedented challenge that could not be addressed through the paradigm shift. Accordingly, 7 points are presented and discussed in this article for consideration. The current negotiations as they stand, or a phased approach as proposed by the current chair of the African Union, the Democratic Republic of Congo, only attempt to revitalize the negotiations are still born. This is because, first, the main issue of the negotiation filling and operation of the JERD is not a major concern for Egypt and Sudan. Almost all of the issues related to the JERD filling and operation during filling are settled. However, for Egypt, any deal on the JERD, phased or otherwise, which does not secure historical rights, is a non-starter. Second, the completion of the second-year filling of the JED will have changed the reality on the ground that dwelling on the issue of filling and operation becomes outdated. Third, the phased approach will naturally lead to the thorny point of water sharing that Egypt is not willing to allow. Contrarily, water sharing is a shared necessity that is in its absence a binding agreement that confuses JED operation with water sharing will outrightly be rejected by Ethiopia. Therefore, if the AU-led process should bear fruit, the trilateral negotiations have to be refined in terms of scope, objectives, and content. Such an approach shall begin with the recognition that any agreement on the JED is not a conclusive deal that can be resolved the Nile qual mare. Any deal on the Nile necessitates frequent adjustment and follow-up that requires a friendly atmosphere for cooperation among the parties. For such a relationship to be established, the three parties must, even if slowly, engage in trust building. That is the main objective of the negotiation, should be finding sustainable ways to build the necessary trust that helps to continuously engage in negotiation and exchanges to tackle obstacles. To achieve this, the scope of the current negotiations has to be boosted to include a broad spectrum of issues of mutual interest, some of which are discussed in this article, but several more can be identified with a concerted effort of the three parties. While Ethiopia has always been a source of major contributor to the Nile waters, its prominence as a Nile power is only in the making. Notwithstanding that Ethiopia has a long way to go in taking up the heavy responsibility that came with its incoming status. The responsible and mature manner in which the implementation of the JED project and the negotiations around it has been conducted is amenable. Having a decisive and game-changer role on probably the most politicized and monopolized river in the world will require Ethiopia to make a major political, educational, conservational, institutional, and diplomatic adjustments to shoulder leadership responsibility in the sector. To conclude, the most amicable formula that has so far been seen as most applicable to resolving the JED concern has been a phased approach that begins with an agreement on the JED filling and operation rules to be followed by a water sharing agreement. In this discussion, we attempted to show that the second-year filling of the JED without an agreement has made the incumbent approach obsolete. The African Union-led trilateral negotiations have to leave behind revitalization effort and go through a paradigm shift that abandons the deal-breaker issue of water sharing and confuses, as well as focusing on more comprehensive operation on areas of mutual interest. The starting point of refined trilateral negotiation should be to recognize that the unbreakable bond among the three countries, that is Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, requires a long-term institutionalized approach that cross-cuts the multifaceted issue of common concern. The focus should be on the shared destiny and not on the warning agreement on a single project. Thank you so much for watching today's editorial. My name is Sandra Asante. I'll see you some other time.